G'day and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our weekly Q&A. Tonight we are fortunate enough to be speaking with Robert Cox from Carabao Kelpies.
Rob will pick who he thinks has had the best question of the night, and they'll win a bag of Enduro Plus, high-energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat.
Evening, Rob. How are you going?
Yeah, well, thank you. Really well. Yeah, thank you for having me on. It's a bit of an honour. Yeah, pleased to be here.
Thanks for jumping on, mate. Much appreciated. You know, you're a busy man, so to take an hour or so out of your schedule for us, mate, we appreciate that, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So as you can see, tonight we're still doing things a little bit different. I'm still in ISO, so Laura's going to be looking at your questions as they come through. So if you could just bear with us during the night, that would be great. And thanks for all the well wishes during the week as well. And a big thanks to Laura for looking after the team last week under some difficult circumstances. She done a great job.
Anytime. So, Rob, we'll jump off straight into it. Tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from and what you do.
Okay. I'm from Manildra, originally from Sydney, born in Sydney. Moved around the countryside. At the moment I'm Manildra, run a sheep place, got sheep, few cows, few horses and too many dogs.
Yeah, it was so coming out of Sydney, mate, where did your passion for livestock and then dogs more so come from?
Well, I never remember a time when I wasn't interested. I blame my great grandmother. She bought me a book by Enid Blyton called Shadow the Sheepdog, and that sort of had me hooked. And Grandpa made me a little farm that I had to move the animals around on, and yeah, that's just what I wanted to do.
How old do you reckon you were back there, mate, when that took place?
Oh, I would have been 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Wow. We're at Panania.
Panania, right in the middle of it there.
Yeah. So apart from a stint where I almost had to go to military college, it was, stockman. That's what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. Yeah. Continue on with that right from the kid.
Yeah.
So you go.
Oh, living the dream, see?
That's what we all hope for, isn't it?
Yeah.
So these days, how do you use your dogs in your day-to-day life?
Yeah. How do I use my dogs? I use my dogs. The block I've got, there's some clear country on it, but there's a fair bit of rough country. So, yeah, I use my dogs to get the stragglers out of the timber and move the sheep to the yards, do a bit of drenching, needling, all of the usual stock husbandry jobs. We've got cattle now, so yeah, starting to use them on cows, dry cattle. That's how I use them.
Starting to get a few horses too there, mate?
Yeah, we're starting to get a horse collection. Yeah. I like to get on a horse when I can. It's good.
So could you do your job without your dogs? And if you couldn't, how would that look?
Yeah, I thought about that one. Yes, I could do my job without the dogs. Because I'm self-employed, I can't sack myself. So, well, you probably can. But so I could do my job without dogs, and how it would look, probably a horse and a drone.
Yep.
Because some of the timbered country I couldn't get a bite through, so it would be a horse and a drone on top with a good camera and probably a microphone.
Take you a fair bit longer too, I'd say.
I'd say so. Or a shotgun up one end of the paddock and a feed cart down the other.
Yeah. Proper trained, mate.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the current lot of dogs you've got there.
Oh, 3 main dogs are Captain, Trigger and Bruiser. Captain has got a lot of the old stuff that I had. He's got 4 crosses of Moss and 4 crosses of Gin. Bit of Capri Boss in him. Then Trigger's got a lot of gin. And Bruiser is by Trigger out of an outcross bitch, out of a Ramulin bitch I've brought over. And they're the three mainstays. I've got two young bitches that I quite like. One's by Trigger, another one's by a South Australian dog out of a Captain bitch. And they're not going too bad. I don't mind those bitches. Yeah.
Do you have a particular style or type of a dog you like, and they have to meet that particular criteria?
Yeah, I suppose the hardest part that I've found with sheepdogging is actually the middle piece. You can get dogs that'll cast out wide. There's any number of kelpies that'll back and bark. But when you got 500 to 1,000 sheep, and you got to get them in the yard, or you got to get them across a creek once you've got them together. So I've always strived that my dogs have that middle piece, because they're pretty important places, and a lot of people can fall down in those areas. So yeah, I've always liked, obviously good casting dogs. I like dogs with a lot of hold. I don't like over strong dogs. They annoy me. It tends to go with a harder temperament and not a lot of round and a lot of hold. They just want sheep to move all the time. And having said that, Trigger's one of those, so there you go. But you've got to have something that shifts them too. But because of where I am, primarily I need hold.
And keeps your blood pressure a bit lower too, not having too many of those types around, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, that's when I started. Talk about blood pressure. I'll go off.
You're right.
I was about 35, 36. And, like all young men, I was fiery. Not now. But I thought, I'm going to have a heart attack if I don't work out what to do with these bloody dogs. Like, they'll drive me to distraction. And so, I started to have a look inside myself and tried to understand where the dogs were coming from instead of it being their fault all the time.
Yep.
That was a big learning curve. Big learning curve.
What did you learn?
I learnt that there was lots of ways to work with a dog, and it didn't have to be all my way.
Yeah.
That was a big lesson. Work around the dog you got.
Just like having any co-worker, right?
No.
No?
Yes. Sorry, people.
That's all right.
I thought we were talking about dogs. No.
Yeah, well, I suppose they are, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And that's the best way to use them too. Use them like an extra person. I often got told a long time ago that I talk to my dogs like they're people, but that's really, when you think about it, that's the role. It could be you, Dan, sitting on the side of the mob.
Yep.
But instead it's captain, but taking up the same position, and you have to understand the same things. So you've got to help them to understand.
Captain might be a better choice, mate. I got terrible temperament and shit nature.
I'd get her. No. Yeah, captain does all right.
Captain goes well, mate. Safer choice.
So why is your team made up of Kelpies? Have you tried other breeds or?
Oh, I work collies. And doing the schools, I've seen, I think we counted 32 different breeds. So I've seen a lot of different breeds. But yeah, I started with Kelpies, and they suit me, a knockabout sort of dog. And there's good collies out there, but it's harder to find an all-round sheepdog in a collie, which is my main work. If I was working cattle, I might have a few collies, but it's hard to find that collie. They're definitely about, and some real good ones, but it's hard to find the collie that's a true sheepdog. Usually they don't like being in close to their sheep. like I said, there's exceptions to the rules and some mighty fine collies, but as a general rule, Kelpies don't mind being close. You know, the hustle and bustle of the yard, well, Kelpies love that. Then you've got to find one that'll cast out. So, yeah, they just suit what I do. And I'm predominantly sheep, so I don't have a lot of cattle work these days. So, yeah.
And these days, you obviously got your own line of Kelpie, but starting out, was there a particular bloodline or a style you were looking for, and how did you progress to having your own line?
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't like real strong dogs.
Yep.
All I do is fight with them. So when I first started trialing, I came across, well, Jim was trialing, Chris was trialing, Steve was trialing. There was a Mac type dog, Baron Bogey Mac type dog that was strong. And there was some Phil's Creek blood around. It wasn't so strong, but they seemed to be real nice-minded dogs. And so even today, I try to blend the Horton, Phil's Creek, Sam, Pat, Basil type stuff with the Mac type stuff, because I think somewhere in the middle is probably the better dogs. They're strong enough, but good in the minds.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. I want a dog that's strong enough. So every now and then you need an injection of bull in them, but I don't want too many.
So have you ever, you've been pretty consistent in what you wanted. Have you ever thought about trying something else and then come back to it because you learnt your lesson, or you just went, no, that works for me and I'll stick with it?
Well, I know what works for me, but you've got to be prepared to work out how to get there, right? So you start breeding dogs that aren't strong enough all the time, you end up with dogs that aren't strong enough. Because dogs breed smaller and softer. That's just the way nature is. So I've always believed every 3 generations you need a hard dog in there, and that picks it up.
Yep.
And he might not necessarily be a dog that I would keep myself, but he's a dog that just keeps that level of intensity and that bit of power in the line.
Has the type of dog you look for changed, obviously, from where you began?
No, not really. No, I like eye, but I also like bark, which is why I don't like dogs that are real strong dogs, because when you get to the creek crossing, you push up and they're marching forward looking great guns, but the sheep are folding around them. So I like a dog that can bulge with noise. And that's why I like my dogs strong enough, not too strong. Eye and noise.
And are you breeding many pups, mate? And what do you like about breeding?
Oh, I love genetics.
Yeah.
That's why I'm mucking around with wool, Murray Greys, the horses, the dogs. I love genetics. But yeah, we got a litter of pups here now. And you talk about breeding. Well, they're a double cross of a bitch that I bred quite a few years ago, and the opportunity came up to double up on her. And the whole reason of doubling up on bitches are so important. I want a doubled up bitch, and then I can take her out. So I'm always thinking, I'll die soon, but in 10 years' time, I'm still right.
So you say, like, the bitch is important. Do you believe in the percentages of bitch more than dog, or what are your thoughts?
No. The bitch is just as important as the cow and the ewe and the mare if you're to maintain a line. A family of bitches is really important. And part of the reasoning is, okay, I breed her a litter of pups and I sell the bitches. I never get the best pup out of those bitches. Old mate that's got the bitch is going to have the best pup out of that bitch. Right? So I keep the bitches. It's hard to get a bitch out of me.
Yeah.
But if I sell a good dog, it doesn't matter. I can always swing that bitch that I've kept over to the good dog.
Yeah.
So it's not so much about percentages. It's about maintaining a family of dogs. And I think the bitches are real important to keep if you want to maintain a family of dogs.
So you're right. Keep going, mate.
So I really only look to keep a male every 3 or 4 years. I'm about due to keep another male now. I think Bruiser's almost 3, if he's not already. But yeah, but I don't keep many males. But if there's a good male going out, well, I can swing a bitch to him.
And when you keep those bitches, mate, and obviously you don't end up keeping the whole lot as they mature, what are you looking for in that particular one that you keep your hands on, that you put your grip onto and you don't let go?
Well, like everyone,
The same stuff?
yeah, hold is a primary for me.
Hold, yeah.
I like a dog whose primary is hold. That's what they do. So again, not necessarily the strongest pup walking into the middle of the mob, horses for courses, but I don't mind that pup skipping around just blocking. And that's where they start. That's not where they finish. As long as the dog has good experiences and they gain in confidence, it's amazing how strong they can get. But having said that, the strong pup, you can mould him and keep him out a bit too. But where I am, I can't afford to send him up into the timber and then he bustles into his sheep and he only brings half of them. He's got to know when to go outside a tree and when to come inside a tree. So hold is a primary. I look for hold. If they're holding by 4 months, they'll not necessarily going around, but if they're holding sheep by 4 months, they'll stay in stud. There's a chance they'll stay in stud.
Yep. You got the next one, Laura?
Yeah. What are you looking for or thinking about before breeding a litter or considering a future joining?
Yeah, just that. Hold. If the bitch is a little softish, that's okay. I'll swing her to a harder dog. Just trying to balance up. I know what faults I can handle and what faults I don't like, because there's no perfect dog. So I learned a long time ago that I'm better off breeding the dogs with the faults that I know I can get around. So it's just matching them up to hopefully end up with something close to what I want.
Well, you basically answered the next question I wanted to ask you, but I'll skip one and go, are there any particular traits that you'd like to put in your line moving forward?
Yeah. I think my dogs are a little heady. Well, I like holding dogs.
Yeah.
And that's their primary. They skip around, they hold sheep up. Sometimes they're a little heady and can take a lead off but it doesn't really bother me, and I'm going to have to be real careful about putting that in. I used a South Australian dog, and I really like the little bitch. She's a bit more down in front, not behind the eye, but not as hard catching as some of my dogs. So I'm really happy with that. How she progresses, time will tell. She's only a baby. So yeah, I'm aware that they're catchy and they need to hold position just a little more. But I'm also aware that I need a dog that can, excuse the French, get its ass around sheep.
Yeah,
It's really important. I don't like seeing sheep running into the scrub.
I don't think anyone does, mate. And
No,
I mean, it's more work and a longer day, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Anyway.
So for you, who were the most influential dogs to get you to where you are today? And what do you think made them or makes them so special?
When I first started, there was Minute, who had an exceptional mind, and he was strong. Comes from Mac. There was Pat, who had an exceptional mind, You know, and so I started. Well, I went and bought 3 bitches when I got sick of getting neighbours' dogs that were no good. I went and bought 3 bitches. One was a minute bitch, one was a Zondo bitch, and one was a watch bitch. And all my dogs go back to those 3 bitches. So Moss was by a pat dog out of a watch bitch. And he was really the start. Well, not really the start, but, you know, he was influential at the start anyway. And Gin was by Zondo. Gin was by a Basil dog. Basil was by Pat out of a Zondo bitch. And the Zondo bitch was out of a watch bitch. So it was all pretty close, but that Mac, Pat, Mac, you know, I really found that cross delivered some incredible dogs, you know, Target, you know, lots of good dogs. Basil was by Pat out of, well, I think it was Misty, who was by Watch out of Lucky's sister, I think, you know, so that Pat, Mac, Pat, it seemed to really work. So, and to this day, I'm still, you know, the litter of pups on the ground now, there's a couple in there, geez, don't they look Pat? You know, they look like Basil and Pat. And then there's a couple of dark ones in there. Holy smokes, you can see the Mac in these ones. You know, one of them looks like Watch. So yeah, that line has been really influential for a lot of people, and me included. So I've tried to maintain that course.
And you were talking there about like when you started off and you went out and you bought 3 outside bitches. What advice would you give to anyone wanting to buy a pup or their first dog now?
Shop around. There's oodles and oodles of good Kelpie breeders. Just have a talk to them all. Most of them are pretty honest people, and tell them what it is you want. Don't, you know, if you want a paddock dog, don't be ashamed. Say, I want a paddock dog. If you just want a yard dog, say, I want a yard dog. You know, if you want the utility dog, good luck. But no, they are about. But try and find a breeder that can deliver the type of dog that you're looking for. Yeah. And then most times when you go and see a litter of pups, you know, don't make a science of it. If you like it, try it. Quite often the pup likes you.
Question here. Rick Freeman has asked, what weaknesses are you prepared to tolerate in a dog's work and even breed from? I suppose that might mean that you don't consider it a weakness, but perhaps what others generally think of as a weakness. You mentioned eye before. Can they have too much? Are you talking about barking on command before or as an instinct?
Okay. Yeah, read it again. So I'm sorry for taking time.
That's all right. What weaknesses are you prepared to tolerate in a dog's work and even breed from? I suppose that might mean that you don't consider it a weakness, or perhaps others generally think of it as a weakness. That's the first part.
The weakness I will not tolerate is an inability to hold sheep, to contain sheep. That is a must. And heart. I will not tolerate a dog that gives up. When I roll up the sleeves and want to get down and dirty, I want that dog rolling up his sleeves too, because we're in for a hard day. I don't need him to go, oh, this is starting to scare me, Robert. I think I'll go home. So I will not tolerate those two things. I don't want to be holding sheep. I'm not fast enough anymore. And I do not want to roll the sleeves up and be left on my own.
Yeah.
They're the two things that I won't tolerate. I don't mind a dumb dog that's trying. I can help him get through his dumbness, but he's got to want to try. They've got to have want.
Yeah.
You can mould them if they've got want. Yeah, go on, sorry.
No, you go. You keep going.
No.
Well, the second part of that question was from Rick. You mentioned eye before. Can they have too much? Are you talking about, and when you're talking about barking on command, is that on command or as an instinct?
Or free bark,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So for me, they can have too much eye, and they can have too little. Like I said, I think my dogs are a little too catchy and heady, and need just a bit more eye. I don't want to go too much eye, because then, you know, look at me, I'm doing a great job. I got them, and you know, the lead's heading off into the scrub, and they're holding the tail up. Yeah, I got them. That I don't want so much eye that they're not aware of the mob they're working. So I want them free enough to be able to work their mob, but enough eye, if one or five or however many get through a fence, they can slip around there and hold position reasonably well. So yeah, too much I don't like. I don't, and I'm not talking my dogs like running around yappy playing dogs. I don't like that. But and I suppose this comes down to conditioning too. When I say push, don't stand there wagging your bloody tail, mate. There's a job to be done. So I want a dog prepared to open up with noise when I ask. Don't stand there telling me it's too hard. If that helps.
And definitely don't go home and tell me it's too hard.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I want that propensity, a dog with freedom, that's free enough and noise is in there genetically enough that I can get it when I want
Yeah.
it. Now those dogs will bark on their own when they're going around the forces and that sort of thing. They're fresh and they're mad. You don't have to tell them to bark too much, but bark's important where you, in situations like creek crossings, where you need to put a lot of pressure on one side, bark is important. Not so much just running around yapping. Get in position and put it on them. It's important. So if you can get a dog that at least likes to bark, you're a step ahead.
And you mentioned eye before and not too much. Do you find the dogs that are sticky tend to not free up with bark? They're just because they're too fixated on what they're doing?
There's exceptions to all the rule.
Yep.
Moss had a lot of eye and a lot of noise. So there's dogs that can do it, but I think as a general rule, most dogs working down low and tied up with eye,
yeah,
it's hard to break in there and get that noise when you want it. And I'm not talking about the back of the race. Like, you can get most dogs barking at the back of the race. I'm talking about creek crossing and critical points where it just comes in handy to bulge them up.
all over it, mate. But that's basically, you answered exactly what I was thinking. So thank you.
Before we move on from breeding, Lance Clifford has asked, have you ever thought of introducing a border collie into your breeding? He says, I believe there is some good blood out there and I have seen some good pups from crosses. Maybe we are missing out by being colourblind. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Lance and I have spoken about this. Yeah, look, there are some terrific crossbred dogs. I've had, well, I wouldn't say terrific, but I've had crossbred dogs. So I'm not against crossbred dogs at all. For me personally, I'm trying to maintain a family of Kelpies. So probably won't introduce a collie myself, but if there's a Kelpie that I really like as an outcross and it's got a bit of collie back further, yeah, why not? You know what I've always wanted to do, and I've never been in a position. I believe your crossbred dogs, the problem is when you breed them out, because genetically there's too much variation.
Yeah.
And I probably won't get to do it, but I would love someone to try and breed a crossbred litter and keep the best dog and the best bitch out of that litter and try and tighten up the blood. And just to see what the outcome is with that. It would be interesting. I'm not in a position to do it, but yeah, it'd be cool if someone did out there.
You've thrown the hook out, mate. We'll see who picks it up.
Nick Hovey has asked, you talk about conditioning and asking a dog to do something. Do you feel that some trainers or handlers desensitize their dogs to commands by overusing the command? For example, saying go back 5 to 10 times whilst the dog is achieving the command.
The dog's going back anyway. Yeah. That, oh man, that's a leading question. So one point is that's why I don't like putting sides on a send. The dog's going anyway. He's not going to stop it because he should want to get around his sheep. And if he doesn't want to get around his sheep, I'm not going to send him. I'm just going to send him on. So you shouldn't need a side to send him back. If you're in the right position and you close off the side you don't want, he should just go. So commands, it's deep territory. I'm not real big on telling a dog what to do. I do like to show a dog what the job is. So I'm a lot more condition dogs into patterns and then name it and use body language a lot more than just saying you must do this, dog, because I believe, and this might be a bit out there, that everything that we ask or command, everything we ask a dog to do in a stock sense is a call. Everything is a call. You call the dog to a stop. You call the dog to the left. You call the dog to the right. Everything is a call, and everything is a call, come and help me please, dog. So in that sense, I don't like calls. That's the way I start my dogs on calls. And I condition patterns. Does that make sense? Did I answer the question even?
Makes sense to me because I've seen it, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, you're right.
Go on. No, go on.
Go for it.
Well, I was going to say, and along those lines, Daniel, that I don't like working the back end of a dog. I detest the notion that you put your arm out behind a dog and push it around sheep. Yeah, I work the front half of a dog. And that way, if they're a bit pushy, which they should be if they've got some want, you're in their head from the start. So I always work the front half of a pup, always.
That's something that's stuck in my head for the last nearly 5 years, mate. So
good.
Yeah, that's one of my pet things, And I never push a dog. I always pull a dog, and that's what you're referring to there with working in front of a dog.
Yep. And you always call on a dog to help you. Come and help me, mate. I need you. I need you here. I need you there. I need you to just lay down for a bit. They're all calls. And if you think of them as all calls, then you start to understand a dog instead of just dictating to a dog.
So going on from that question, Nick has asked, so would you prefer a run or a send command?
The run command's good. A run, especially when I was in steeper country, I used to put a run so I could actually move my dogs wherever I wanted, but it's not as necessary. There's some parts of Australia you could use it, but it's not totally necessary. I have a getaway, and I'll just say getaway. And that simply means, and it's taught when they're babies, get to the other side of the sheep. Get away. Don't stop at 9, 10 or 11 o'clock. That's not the other side. Get away. So, yeah, and it turns into a just a free whistle, just a release whistle. Yeah.
Can you elaborate on a run? Is that purely just pick up the pace, or?
No. I think what he was referring to was a run. So a dog starts directly in front of you, and just runs, and from that you can put your calls left or right to steer him where you need him to go.
Yep.
I've seen it used to great effect in New Zealand, and there's parts of Australia that it can be used to great effect too. I haven't had too many situations since I've been here, and that's 20 years, where I've needed a run. It's usually just get away. You can find yourself, you can find your own way around the property. Just run. Just get out there. Yeah. So yeah, I don't use a run anymore. I used to, but I just don't see the practical need for it where I am.
So how much effort would you put into training your dogs these days when you start them?
Well, I was working one this afternoon. I think compared to most people, I don't put a lot in. They'll see sheep once, probably 3 times before they're 4 months old, maybe a couple more. It depends. It's like I tell people, I say, how often should you work a pup? I say, when you want to. Yeah. And if I want to, I'll work them 3 times a week. If I don't want to, they'll go 3 weeks without seeing a sheep. So yeah, but I wouldn't say that I'm religious, must go down and train Friday afternoon is puppy time.
Yeah.
No, I like doing a little bit away from sheep, just on a chain, and just having a bit of contact, and yeah, I enjoy feeding the dogs with a pup around, or just letting one off and running and calling it, because come call's the most important thing anyway. So I spend probably most time on the come call and actually teaching them to work sheep.
So how do you know a pup is ready for more?
You don't really, do you? He's not telling you, geez, Rod, I'm ready. Get me out there, I'm good. So it'd be nice if they did, because then I probably wouldn't send them out as early, because you see the look on their poor little faces going, what the hell? But look, okay, I've got a bitch 5 months old. She gets around a sheep pretty good. I've had her in a 20-acre paddock going around 20 or 30 sheep. That's okay. You could say, is she ready to go around a couple of hundred? Who knows? When I drop her on a couple of hundred, I'll know. Whoops, she wasn't ready. Right? So yeah, you never really know, but by the same token, you're not going to know if you're playing cautious all the time and don't give them a crack. And let them make a mistake. Don't be frightened to let them make a mistake. But how are you going to know if you don't let them have a crack?
Don't know, mate. When I was an oil electrician, mate, my boss used to throw me in the deep end and go fix that excavator. No dramas. What's an excavator?
What's an excavator? Yeah, exactly. So I a young pup, if it's going around 20 or 30 sheep in the paddock, and you can call it back to you. Yeah, okay. One day when the older dogs have got 100 and we're just about to go through the gate, put the old dogs on the back. There you go, pup. See if you can go around them. And of course, the sheep are going to go. They're old, educated sheep. You wouldn't do it on weaners. So as soon as the pup gets around them, they're coming through the gate anyway. Job done. Well done, pup. And it's easy to catch because the sheep are going through the gate. No.
Only to the next paddock if you're not in the yard yet.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, you never really know, but if they're fast enough to get around sheep, give them a crack.
So Amanda Dunbar has asked, do you find the dogs shut down if you're in their head from the start, or is this how you initially make your pick of the litter?
I am in their head from the start. By the time they're weaned off mum, they've got a pretty fair idea that they shouldn't walk under my feet. So they're starting to respond to body language already. And then that creates the space in front of me as a sacred place, because that is reserved for sheep. The sheep will be in front of me as they are an older dog. So from the time they're 6 weeks old, they're getting used to the fact that they're not allowed in there, unless they're invited, of course, and you do invite them in. But otherwise, you stay away from that place. And that makes it easier to start them on sheep that they don't want to play in front of you because they know it's dangerous territory. And so it's easier to take a pup out on a mob because they're more inclined to run out to the side instead of running through. And the body language is just so important. So if I can get inside their heads and get them reading my body so I become a lighthouse when they're young, well, I'm happy with that. And as far as picking a pup, I've got one now I like, but he keeps coming up to me too. So it's not just my fault. And what he's telling me, this might sound a bit weird, but what he's telling me is that he can deal with me. And I like that. He's comfortable with me. And he's a bit of a rat, so that's okay too. He looks like he's going to have a bit of want. Now, he's only 5 weeks old, so who knows? But he seems to be able to deal with me, and he seems like he's going to have some want. And that's okay for me. If he's dumb, I can help that.
Sorry, mate. I was gonna say that pup coming up to you and like you not wanting those pups in front of you when you initially having them. That's setting boundaries early, and you believe that's a great start for being able to, for pups to work out. Hey,
it's a great boundary because it's not a spoken word, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So straight away, I'm instilling. Listen, I'm the pack leader, and I'm not going to walk around you, little mate. I'm not going to jump on them and screw my foot down on them. But if they get in my way, I'll make sure that they're uncomfortable enough that they think twice about it. And that's not with a growl or any spoken word at all, because then it's miscommunicated as a punishment. It's not a punishment. It's just you learn that I am the alpha and you get out of my way. So it's done without a spoken word. So I become the lighthouse from a very early age, if that makes sense. So the lighthouse is what I want to become when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 too. Here I am in the paddock and I'm going that way. That's where we're taking the sheep. So I don't have to tell the dog how to do his job. That's the start of showing a dog what the job is. Right, so that spot in front of me. Sorry?
I was just going to say, how do you go about doing that?
Well, that's the start. That little pup learns to stay out of my way. And when he's starting on sheep, I make sure that whenever he goes to work sheep, the sheep are coming to the front of me. No matter what the pattern is, I make myself the lighthouse. So he moves to the left and the sheep move to the right, that's where I am. He goes to the right, the sheep move to the left, that's where I'm going to be. So he's always moving the sheep to the front of me. Right? Not around about me. And it gets tighter as we develop. Then I insist that gets tighter and tighter. When he's first starting out, it might be around me in a matter of fashion. But then once you get a call on him and you start getting into that second pattern, you don't push sheep past me, mate. You place them at my feet.
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, you're right.
That's what I try to do.
Yeah, so Rob, talking about your lighthouse and from a pup. Now, I suppose this is a pretty a question that can be answered a lot of different ways. But what is feel to you, mate? Like genuine feel, and do you think it's only bred or can it be trained?
It can be helped. Feel and a dog can have different work but still have feel, right? So your catchy heady dog can still have feel, which in that situation he knows where to be to stop the sheep, to stop movement, and he knows how far out to be to stop movement. So it's feel. And then you got your behind the eye dog working down low, and sheep are bending off it all the time. And those sort of dogs with feel will rate their sheep from behind, and proper feel, they won't cause a bulge in a mob because they'll move sideways if they feel it coming. Right?
Yep.
But then you've got an added piece to feel in relation to the person, right? So the dog's feeling his sheep, but my question is the dog feeling his sheep in relation to where we're going? So then a dog can have feel and rate the mob, right? You're riding along behind, and he can feel when to take the pressure off the lead because they're starting to pull up, and he'll just take a step sideways, let the movement happen again. Well, that's feel too. But I like that. But that's feel with the lighthouse in play too, because he's working for you. So there's different, but basically I think feel is how far away from the sheep to be and in what position to be to achieve what the dog wants to achieve.
Do you think that sometimes people get hooked up on grip with feel, and not all dogs have a lot of grip, and maybe that's why sometimes it's understanding of
feel. Captain's got incredible feel, and I wouldn't say he was a grippy dog.
Yeah,
he's a catchy dog with feel. You can have a grippy dog with feel. That's different again. There's different forms of it, but both are feel. So when Captain gets around the front and blocks up sheep, he knows exactly where to be to pull them up and exactly how far out to be so that he won't disturb them, which makes him an excellent scrub dog.
Yeah.
But you can have, certainly you can have a dog that has grip and feel, but you can have a catchy dog with feel too. It's how they carry out their intentions, really.
Yeah, that's right. And the smarts that have to go with it plays a part in that, obviously.
Well, if they're here I go going silly again, but the primary is important, right? So if the dog's primary is to grip or to take hold of a mob and move a mob, if that primary is correct, he'll do it with feel, right? Just like a catchy dog. If a catchy dog, his primary is to hold sheep no matter what, and he doesn't like losing sheep, then he should do it with proper feel too. Clear as mud.
Yes, clear as mud all over it.
Lee has asked, I wish to start some pups on sheep. I only have cattle yards made from pennels, so we'll purchase some sheep pennels. Any recommendations for size, height, type, etc., and recommended breed and age of sheep for starting a pup?
Soft, young merinos. Dorpers are really challenging. Nice soft merinos are as easy as any. My yard would be 10 by 10 meters, I suppose, thereabouts. It's not a huge yard. It's square. I can see a purpose for round yards sometimes. Personally, I don't like them because I want a dog to learn to run a fence and dig those sheep out.
Yeah.
And as soon as a dog's going around sheep, I want that. So going around a round yard, I've seen it lead to a dog cutting across corners in a square yard. Then you've got to teach him all over again. So why not just teach him in a square yard? You can do your second pattern in a square yard quite easily. You don't need a round yard for that. Yeah. But about 10 by 10 I've got. That's a reasonable size.
You could cheat like me, Rob. I've got a half circle yard. So it's half circle, I've got 2 corners. And it's for the exact same purpose. For the exact same purpose of what you just said, of digging sheep out from a young age. It's something I encourage.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. And it's all about that want, isn't it? Do they want to get in there or not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mate, how long have you been trialling, and what kind of trialling do you like to do?
I've been trialling for years. I think my first trial was spring of '89 at Harden. I think was my first yard dog trial.
Laura can remember that far.
What was the next part of the question?
And what type of trialing do you do, and what do you prefer?
Yeah, I like all disciplines. I have a soft spot for the yard dog trialing. The reason being is that I remember when I was a beginner, still a beginner, but for me, it's a fantastic sport for a young stockman to come off a place with his station bred hound with half a handle and have some fun. And from that fun and talking to the other trialers, they then can go home and realise, oh, maybe there's some things I can learn to make life easier for me at home. So it's a great opener for young stockmen. They don't feel the pressure of a 3-sheep trial, which can be pretty daunting. They can go in a beginner yard trial with a station bred dog with a couple of, might have a sit, and that's about it. Yeah. But they can get in there and have a go because it's station type work on a smaller scale, of course. But then from there, they can see how little things make their life easier. And that's why I choose yard trialing. But I like all disciplines. Go on.
You just answered the next 2 questions as well, mate. You're all over
it. What were they?
Why do you like it? Laura was about to ask that.
That's why I like it. Yeah. Anyway.
Laura?
In your time, have you noticed a change in the way people handle stock and dogs away from trialing? And is it for the better, or how do you see it?
I don't see much away from trialing, but I think there's plenty of good dogs around today. That I think there are a bit fewer and further between. Or when I'd say good dogs, there's always been good dogs, but the standard is pretty good at yard trialing these days. I think handling, because of the environment we're in, the cultural environment, I think handling has come a long way. I think some people get hung up on training and demanding a dog do, like, well, we all get demanding. I compete, so I demand. But I think general training, they don't pay enough attention to what I was talking about earlier about the body language and how important that lighthouse piece is. one of my bugbears is being at a trial and people standing at the gateway facing out into the arena, and they wonder why the dog comes up behind with the sheep behind the gate.
Yeah.
And all they had to do was turn. It's natural for that space in front of you to be where the dog wants to put the sheep, because he doesn't want to be in front of you. And it makes it easier if you just turn into the gate. So that always drives me to distraction. But yeah, I think generally that it's pretty good.
Well, that's that body positioning you were talking about earlier as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's people oblivious to it, or just getting caught up with a bit of nerves?
It could be nerves, but I think it's also, it shouldn't matter where I stand. If I ask the dog to go a certain way, the dog should just go that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you've got a 3-year-old dog and you've done the basics schmick, and I mean schmick, then okay, maybe you can stand the opposite way and he will listen to you. But 90% of people don't get the basic schmick, and so they need to help the dog as much as they can. And body language is a natural occurring phenomena that helps.
Beautiful. That's like you had a pre-wrote, mate. You,
I've been working on this all day, mate.
But if you had the opportunity to change anything in any form of trialing, is there anything you'd change?
Yes. And to all those 3 sheep people out there, please don't take this the wrong way, because I love your sport. And I don't know if you even do it now. And it's not a crossing thing, because you let the beginners cross, and I think that's a great thing. And it's disqualified for the others, and I think that's a good thing too, because a dog needs to work with reference. But I don't know if it's been done. But at home, my sheep don't always travel on my right hip, and I don't always stand at the left side of gateways. So I would like to see at some point in the future a trial that could be worked left-handed or right-handed. I don't know, it might be too hard to set it up that you could work either way, but maybe one day have a left-handed course. I think that would be interesting. That would be really interesting.
It'd give you a more balanced dog as well, wouldn't it?
Well, it would give you a better look at the dog.
If a dog wasn't balanced, yeah.
If you had, from your delivery, you went to a left-handed obstacle, then across to a right-handed obstacle. So I don't know about the logistics, but as a spectacle, I would like to see that, to see how the dog handles it.
Yep. And what about in a yard trial with crosses as well? Is there anything you would change there, or you don't mind a working cross?
Yeah, it started to get a little lazy, and I think it's starting to change back now, and so it should. A drive is a lot different to sitting a dog inches to the left of you and walking around his backside. That's laziness.
Yeah.
That's why bring him out. A drive, fine, that has merit and it has a work connotation. Holding away, if the dog's 3 or 4 meters or further away and holding sheep in a position, yeah, walk behind him. But sometimes you see him sitting inches off the line. Like, just whip him out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favourite trial to participate in, or one you'd like to have a crack at?
I've had a crack at most of them. As far as yard trials go, Henty's a good trial. I haven't been to Wagga for a long time, but it used to be a good trial. West Wyalong, Bathurst. Yeah, did you hear that in the background? Teralga. I love Teralga. One of my favourite courses is the novice course at Teralga. I like how that's set up. Yeah, it's a good course.
A tricky course.
Armadale's a good course. There's plenty, and I like the courses that don't have Hessian because that's a reflection of real work. There's a lot of good yard courses out there. And Three Sheep trials. Molong is a good trial. I haven't been to the National. That's one that I would like to get to when I get a dog good enough. So I'll probably never get there. But yeah. But Molong's, that's a good one.
While we're talking, still on the trialling subject, you mentioned the other day something that I actually never knew either, that in yard trialling there used to be a Trans-Tasman Australia versus New Zealand, and there was an Australian course and a New Zealand course. Do you want to touch on a bit of that, mate?
Well, I was lucky enough to have a couple of handy hounds at the time. Robert Mons started it, and he did some really good work, Robert, and he got this Trans-Tasman going. So the first year it was first and second at Henty, which happened to be myself and Steve Condell, and we went off to New Zealand to represent our country, which was just amazing. Wearing the green and gold, that was a good moment. And then the second year, I was lucky enough to, I was first and third in Western Australia, and Neil Christensen, unfortunately, there were some ordinary circumstances and he couldn't come over. So I was the only rep with Moss and Gin, and they decided to put a New Zealand course and an Australian course. So we had to run twice. The New Zealand course, you had to start with your dog in a circle next year, and the dog had to make noise before it left the circle, a half-metre hoot. So it had to start with noise. Every time you worked an obstacle, it had to be worked with noise. The draft, I can remember it now, was 2-2-2-2-1-1. So that was all right. I wish we could have that more often.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. But every obstacle had to be worked with noise. If you didn't work with noise, you'd be pointed, which was okay for Moss. He was a free bark. And he had a good mind, so he was quite able to deliver. But Gin was Gin. So I got her to make noise, but there was a lot of friction. And that's how Gin operated. If you weren't just opening the gates and letting her do her thing, she was a hard bitch to work, but she taught me a lot, that bitch. She taught me that the friendly pup isn't everything, because she was a bitch of a pup. I was forever pulling her out from under a vehicle. But every time I put her on sheep, I thought, she's got to stay. The amount of stock sense and old doggedness in this little pup was just outstanding. So I thought, I better learn how to get around you, because you're just too good. And so you come across dogs like that teach you things, and she certainly did. But anyway, getting back to the trial, it was good. Yeah, the Trans-Tasman days I managed to represent including the double, 4 occasions. So, it's quite an honour. Yeah, definitely. It was good.
Pretty big achievement.
Yeah, I was wrapped. Yeah, it's probably not, I'm not going to denigrate it. Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was great.
And what type of dogs were the New Zealand team using?
Hunaways.
All Hunaways,
Yeah. So the noise was easy for them, but we were on Merinos though, and the Merinos just ducked their heads down after a while. They were sick of it. Yeah.
So we just had.
Laura?
I've had a question come through. When a judge is asked to judge a novice and an open trial, should there be a defined line between the expectations of the two classes?
The judge would probably already have that in his mind. For me, myself, if I was judging two classes on the same day, let's put a scenario up.
let's say a maiden novice. They
Yeah,
quite
okay.
often run together.
Yeah, so say I'm judging a maiden novice. I might be a little bit more lenient on a bite scenario. So if a young dog was running the fence and grabbed a couple of faces, yeah, you know, does it really, as long as they're not proper connecting bites, just little noses, does it really matter? When you're trying to pull open dogs apart, it could be the difference between winning and losing. So you draw your own lines up, and you know, a break. So your maiden novice dog might be working real hard and drops a sheep off. It's only a little break, so you hit him a couple of points. Open dog working too hard with the same break might be 3 or 4. So you know, you step it up according to what you believe the dogs are capable of in different classes.
Yep. So more expectation from those open dogs, so you point them harder.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But I don't like changing for the final. I like to be hard from the get-go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you start one way, be consistent with that way through the whole day.
Yep. And it's important to judge to your talk. So don't just have your talk and forget about it. Remember your talk. Because if you say, this is what I want, and you don't judge that way, then I don't think you're being fair to the competitor who's heard the talk and gone, right, okay, well, I'm going to try and do it right.
Yep.
So you listen to your own talk and be honest and judge to your own talk.
Being consistent all day then, right? Not just, the first 10 dogs weren't able to do it, so I'll be a bit lighter on it now.
Yeah. Or on your way to the toilet, you look at the scoreboard and think, oh, shit, I better go a bit harder. Yeah, no, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, agreed, mate.
Before Dan's next question, because there's a question here that's pretty much the same.
Yep.
Ben as a party has asked, who was the most influential stockman or person, and what do you think made them so respected, and who taught you? Someone who inspired you?
Are you talking trialing? I presume. Anything?
In general.
Well, I'll go to the very first lesson I learned was my first day at work in Queensland. I'll try to keep it short. We had 500 bullocks walking out. There was an old ringer and myself. The old ringer's riding long, rolling a smoke, and he had cattle from sneeze to breeze. I was young and keen and had my bullocks neat as a pin. The horse was knocked up, but the bullocks were neat as a pin. And in my eagerness, I thought, well, that's a mess over there. I better go over there and straighten that out too. And as I went across, he hit me fair up the back of the head with a stirrup iron.
You didn't do that again, did you?
Don't cross again. And he just goes, they be my cattle over there, boy. They be your cattle over there. You do what you want with your cattle. Leave mine alone. And I never crossed anyone ever again. that was my first lesson at work. And hence the ugly face. And anyway, and as far as trialing, Jimmy Loose, I always looked up to Jim. I did go to a school, but he was a bit coy, Jim. He wondered why I was there. I said, I'm there to learn. but I really looked up to Jim. He could play a dog really well. Princey was an extremely good stock person. I didn't have a great deal to do with Greg, but I certainly respected him. But as far as yard dog trialing, watching Jim, watching Chris, Steve, you know, there was plenty of people around when I started. He's just sitting on the sidelines and making notes and, oh, okay, so they do it that way. I'll try that when I get home. Yeah, just mucking around with things.
And for our listeners out there that weren't sure, he's talking about Chris Stapleton and Steve Wayman there.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's all right.
If you're watching, Chris.
I've had another. Whoop, you go.
Keep going,
Another
Laura.
question's come through from Nick Hovey. Should there be a hard and fast rule on filling a race, etc., in a yard trial? Either they have to back no matter what, or if the dog can fill the race without it, you don't need to. He says he wouldn't back a dog in a work situation if there was no sheep left in the pen. So why is it judge's discretion?
It is judges' discretion for a reason, but I don't think judges use the discretion enough. I think in the talk they don't make it clear that you're allowed to jump your dog over if you so desire and work the side of the race. There is a lot more judges' discretion. I've heard a lot more judges say if you've loaded the race well and the sheep are packed up the front, there's no need to back the race. That makes sense to me. That's good. But I think that especially in beginner classes when you've got young stockmen coming in who may work the side of the race every day. And I work the side of the race. I've got a 3-story convention race and my dogs have to work, it's too hard on them all day running up over the back. So I ask them to come out. I think I'd like to see judges explain that option is there more often. The reason a lot of rules are subjective in yard dog trialing is because there's no set course, right? Sheep are always different. The courses are different. You might be working shorn sheep. You might be working woolly sheep. So if you're working shorn sheep, there's probably no need to back them. If you're working woolly sheep, you may need to back them, you may not. So I think there's a room for judges to show discretion. I also think, and I think we've done it well so far, the committee of the Yard Dog Association needs to make sure that we're getting judges up with enough experience and general everyday stockmanship knowledge that they can make good subjective decisions. If that answers it.
I think so.
It does, and I would like to see a few different variations, like you just mentioned there, because it is the old, your dog must be at the front when you open a gate kind of thing. So a couple of, leaving it up to the handler, as long as it works, that could that shows a bit of stockmanship, right?
Yeah. And
who goes
I
before
probably
that?
shouldn't say this. I probably shouldn't say this live, but I rarely completely listen to the judges talk. I quite often, because I'm a tad stubborn, maybe I like to go out there and prove the talk wrong, and do good work, even though it wasn't what the judge wanted. So I might not make a final, but I've done good work and I'm happy with that. But along this discretionary thing, we're at Goulburn a lot of years ago, and Chris, I know you're watching. He was judging the novice at Goulburn, and it was really, really wet, and the sheep were muddy and they were fine wool little. Chris made a discretionary call, and it was a good one. He said, "These are wooled sheep. I will not have them muddied. You've got one crack at back in the race, then every dog must work outside the race." It was a great call and a great trial. There were a lot of dogs couldn't do it, and that's okay. But the dogs that could do it were paid for it, and the sheep were clean. And at the end of the day, it's all about the sheep. It's not about the dog. The dogs are a tool.
Yep. That'd be cool to see something like that, mate. It's not very often you get to see something like that. So, and picking dogs apart, like I don't know if mine would do it, but I'd have a crack. And I suppose it would show a bit of stockmanship as well, because if your dog can't do it, all right, how are you going to make it work?
Yeah. I quite often, not all the time, but quite often I'll teach my young dogs to work the side of the race first.
Yeah.
But I need them to work the side of the race where I am.
Cool. How are we going with questions there, Laura?
We're all up to date at the moment. Is there a message you'd like to get out into the working dog community?
Keep it simple, stupids.
I don't know. That was
Sorry,
coming.
that sounded awfully rude. No. I think. Sorry. I think. A lot of people forget the simplicity of it all, and how the further down the track you get, as far as level of competency goes in the dog, it always comes back to how well the simple things were done at the start. So how do I explain it? The advanced class is the beginner class done better.
Yeah.
There's no extra tricks. You're just doing the simple stuff better. Same stuff I'm doing with them at 6 and 7 months old. You're just refining those same moves.
Mate, you've had a lot of handy dogs over the years. Mate, have you got a best achievement or most memorable moment?
I was thinking about that one. There's 2 memorable moments. Well, there's a few. I was lucky. I won the Australian with Sarge, and I bred him out of 2 dogs I bred. So that was a special occasion, and it was a tough. He won it with, I think, 67 and 64. It was a tough trial.
That's it, that much.
No, it was hard. And there's a lot of fellas around today that'll testify to how hard it was. And then when Ruby won the novice and the national Kelpie at Ellery, that was quite a moment. But, it's not really trialing, but my greatest memory around the whole trialing thing was when I was at school at Molong as a young kid in year 7, and the ag teacher used to take us down to the Molong Rec to watch the state sheepdog championships. And I used to go around everybody and ask them to pat their dogs and being a real nuisance. So I managed to get, one year I went there with Moss and I managed to get in the top 20 of the Molong state championships. And I was sitting there ready to go on, and this little kid come up in a school uniform. He says, "Excuse me, mister, can I pat your dog?" Well, I bloody near broke down, and I hope that kid's working dogs today, because that was special. He was me.
Yeah, I bet it would be.
Yeah, took a long time for me to go back to Molong after that.
I'm impressed you can remember it.
Oh, good on you. Anyway.
Amanda Dunbar has asked, as a judge, would you rather see an inexperienced handler get in and help an inexperienced dog, or is it better to retire before it all turns pear-shaped?
Help. Some people criticise me because I train my dogs on the course, but it's here's one thing I will say, and it's a big rule of mine: always trial for the next trial, if that helps people. So if I'm in the ring and a dog's playing up, just pull it. Don't stop, but don't worry about the points. Do whatever it takes to get the dog around so the dog can have a win and the dog's listening, because it'll come back to bite you if you don't at the next trial. If you can fix it at that trial, then the next one should become a little bit easier. So always trial for the next trial. I got criticised in I think it was the New South Wales Championships. There was a couple of blokes judging, and Sarge was only 18 months old, and he was being a bit headstrong and a bit belligerent, and I pulled him up in the final. And the judges said, "What the bloody, you're in the final of the New South Wales Championships and you're pulling your dog up and play games with him?" I said, "He'll have his day. I'm not going to let him get away with it." So always trial for the next trial. So I don't believe in walking away. I believe in doing what you can to help your dog around. And that goes for everyone, not just beginners. That's everyone.
And that's the same at home as well, right? You're not going to let your dog get away with it or with something at home. So jump on top of it, and you're going to use the same aspect in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Otherwise, they learn that the ring is different. So, yeah, always trial for the next trial.
Is there anything you do away from dogs, mate? A hobby, hidden talent, something we don't know about? Support a good footy team?
I don't know. Here's one for the books. I have a poetry book.
No, you don't.
Don't cock your water up. No, I do.
Really?
It's packed away at the moment because we're in the caravan. Yeah, every now and then I write a bit of poetry. Yeah. All stockmen are sensitive, don't you know that, Dan? All of you.
We'll have to see that the next whole weekend trial, mate. I expect you to give us a little note or two.
I've got to get a magazine.
Yeah, okay, but I'll give you one for the magazine, but I've got to get it out of the boxes when we move into the house.
Sounds like a deal.
We'll hold you to it.
Okay, but yeah, that's my hidden. Well, I wouldn't call it a talent, but that's the little thing I do on the side.
That's pretty cool, mate. That's very good. I couldn't. I find it hard to string 4 words together, so there's no way I'll make a poet.
I didn't say I was a poet. I tried. Anyway,
is there anything that you'd like to see us introduce to Dog Talk?
Well, to be honest, I've only just got the internet, so I'm not really up to speed. But I think it's terrific, and having this chat here tonight, it's like, yeah, I love. Nothing I love more than talking dogs, but well, horses, cows, sheep, okay, but no, I think this is a great concept, and you know what would be good is get a couple of beginners. Like, you've gone through the more experienced fellas. I haven't seen a beginner advertised, or one of your weekend warriors. You know, they've got a lot to offer. It doesn't have to be the experienced guys and everybody looking for a fix all the time. Why not just hear the other side? I'm real big on remembering where I came from, and I was an encouraged worker once. And yeah, don't underestimate them and what they have to offer.
That's very good advice, mate. And I suppose it's keeping it real, right? So we haven't heard that before.
I love
so
keeping it real.
I know all too well. But no, I can appreciate that, mate. And thanks for that feedback. That's honestly, that's something I haven't considered before. So
definitely
be good.
Let's take that on board.
Yeah, I think it. You know, there may just be something that we can all learn from someone just kicking off.
Never know it all, do we?
No. But even if it puts old stooges, like, gives an old stooge like me a bit of perspective, and you know, just remember that it's not real easy kicking off. Like, I remember how nervous I was. My knees used to shake, and yeah, it'd be nice to hear that from someone and how they're struggling to get into it, if they're struggling to get into it, you know.
On that note,
anyway. Yes.
On that note, is there anyone who'd like us to sit down with and do a Q&A with?
Have you done old Jim yet? Old Jim Loose? I know he's not mucking around with dogs anymore, but he'd be great to listen to. He'd have some good old stories.
Yeah, no, we haven't been able to have a chat with Jim yet. But,
yeah, he'd be a good one. Lyndon Cooper.
Yep.
South Australia. Yeah, I don't know. Anyone, you know, like I said, the beginners got a lot to offer too. Just let's all talk dogs. Good.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job.
Well, let's talk about great jobs. Let's see how good your memory is here, mate. It's time for you.
I've been racking my brain.
It's time for you to think of a question that was asked tonight, mate, and that person will win a bag of Enduro Plus working dog.
Can you read through them all again?
If
No.
you have an idea of the question, I can find the person's name.
Was it Dunbar? Was it?
Yeah, Amanda had a few questions. Yeah.
And Freeman?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think his was all right.
That
They're
was
all
early.
okay.
Yeah, that was very early in the piece, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had the one
Yeah, I
about
think.
weaknesses that you're prepared to tolerate.
Yeah, I think that one.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Because that's a real personal one, because everybody can handle different aspects of a dog. So what I consider a weakness, someone else considers a strength. But that was a good question. Yeah.
Well, Rick, get in touch with us with your details, and we'll pass them on to Enduro to send that dog food off to you. We'd like to thank all of our members for tuning in tonight, and of course you, Rob, for your time. It's been great.
You're welcome. No, I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
That's good. One last question before you go. Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks?
Yeah. No, that was a good one. I would rather. This will be controversial. I would rather fight one duck the size of a horse.
Any reasoning?
Because yep, he's in your face and you haven't got 19 in your back.
Love it.
You know what you're dealing with.
That's
Exactly.
right. That's right. Mate, well, like Laura said, mate, thank you very much for your time tonight. We really appreciate you, and I know that we try to hold it an hour, but the talk was pretty good tonight, and we're at 150% there at an hour and a half. So thank you very much for jumping on board and spending some time with us.
You're welcome. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, and to everyone out there, please remember we learn every day, and the day we stop learning, it will be a sad one for all of us.
Yep.
Good night.
Well done, everyone. Bye.
See ya.